Well, here we are, and we've watched Carmine preach. Why Carmine? Well, Linda
That's where the camera was.
is a lady, and I don't want y'all talking about me. So, and Carmine's a new guy, so we will we'll talk about him. Does it make sense to talk about before we talk about the sermon? Anything about the setup? Any commentaries about the way things were structured?
You mean the...
Well, he's on the floor. He's not at the pulpit.
Oh,
He's not wearing a tie. I mean, he's
He
wearing a
is wearing
tie,
a
but
tie.
not a coat.
yeah.
15 years ago, that would bother me. Today, a lot of preachers, you're surprised to have a tie on. So, what? Any thoughts about what is appropriate to wear, not wear?
I think that for men, it's... Personally, I as a woman, I always dress in a suit. Only because, to be real honest with you, I think that it sometimes is harder for people to take me seriously, but that might be my own hang-up rather than somebody else's.
Well, it's something that I hadn't given a lot of thought to, but now that you bring it up, do you think that our folks in particular respond or react or think differently about the person or even what they're saying based on how they're dressed?
When we started years ago, I found myself, and it's not from my tradition, but I found myself wearing a robe because a lot of my folks at that time wanted me to. Now, I always assumed a part of that was that the ministers that they saw on TV in a good light were the ones that were in the robe, and the ones made fun of were ones in a suit. In today's reality, now we're talking 30 years ago.
Right.
In today's reality, it's just as likely to see some guy in a polo shirt and Dockers as a coat and tie. I think that it's important that to me that if what we do at another church, now of course what we do at another church will be dependent on the tradition of that church.
Right.
But I guess I shy away from doing something less for our folks because so much of that's done. But I just found that I find myself going up and down a lot to the podium, and I wonder if that's distracting, and Carmine just brings it all down to the main floor. See, I'll leave my notes up there, and if I need my notes, I'll find myself wandering back up on the platform. Because, it's the old Presbyterian centrality of the Word of God. I'm not a Presbyterian, I was raised that way. You preach, and at least you read the Word from the pulpit.
Right.
And you proclaim, and so, I don't know. I just
Well,
find
that was also my tradition. But now, see, I'm in a totally different setting in that in both of my places. I'm in a chapel, but it's a chapel on Saturday. It's a chapel that doesn't have a podium, so I speak from the ground floor.
Okay.
I'm in a chapel. I'm in the gym. And so for me, I don't have a
on Sunday,
podium.
the gym.
On
Saturday's
Sunday.
the chapel, but
Sunday I'm in the gym, and so I don't have a podium so I never even thought about it.
I did notice that I start when I wonder how distracting it is when I keep going up and down.
Well, I know.
Carmine seems to bring it all down. To the
I know
floor.
when we did a sermon course at one point, they were talking about how effective moving is if it is moving with a purpose.
Right.
And so if you are moving down to either illustrate a point or to make closeness part of what you are saying, which is many times what I will do. I will walk down to in the middle in order to make the point that I want to be close to you. I want the closeness. I want you to be close to me. I want you to be close to, because I want to emphasize the closeness of God or that kind of thing. So,
What's your thoughts on what you do on any of that?
Well, I don't know that I've been terribly purposeful. I think it just comes from my years of doing youth ministry, I've certainly preached many times from standing behind a pulpit, you know,
Mhm.
in church. Probably very few times that I ever moved down from the platform onto the main floor of church when I spoke. Here it seems for me to be a little bit more intimate, a little more free range of movement, in that the platform there is very central, and it does sort of limit your ability. I think people's ability to pay attention. Also, movement helps continue to keep focus. You're not getting droned in on one.
And you do
Area.
you do feel kind of far away in that at that pulpit.
Yeah. So I like it, but it's funny. I will always have led worship from up there. I very rarely ever come down on the main floor from worship. That may have to do with people's attention somewhat being up on the screen, and not necessarily on me. Sort of sound monitors and probably that play a role in that. But I never come down for leading worship. I tend to want to walk down for preaching.
Well, I like the idea of personally not being behind the pulpit with our members, because I think it says to them we're not apart. I liked what he was saying, our services, when we have what we are getting from the state cut. He's bringing himself in, and he's becoming a part of the community, a part of who they are. It's his services that are being cut as well as theirs. And I think that going down to the floor does that. It makes that a more personal, more intimate kind of thing.
When we met at the chapel of the Methodist Church, we just overwhelmed. It was too small for us, and that's why we moved to the chapel of the Baptist Church, which is too big for us. And so there's this sense that it's almost uncomfortably empty. I mean, there might be 80, 90 people there, but still that thing can chapel probably hold 300. So it's not like trying to squeeze 80 people into a chapel that's meant for 50. I mean, it has a. So I don't know. Just some thoughts. The